Hello, Roseanne Harris, and thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Good, Adi. How are you doing? How are you coping with lockdown?
We're doing okay. I think we are empathetic for the whole world being in lockdown. We've set ourselves up that, in fact, lockdown is a comfort zone for us in a way as a business. But so I guess we're doing okay, all things considered.
That's good.
Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, coping, but sure, it is a very different pace of working and pace of engagement with people than that we've all had to get used to very, very quickly, while we also cope with the storm raging outside.
Yeah. So you're saying the pace has increased?
Oh, very much, yeah. And the lines are very blurred between home and work as well, which is quite a challenge to manage. But obviously, I mean, I'm working in the healthcare space, so lots to do and come to terms with, and lots of new information almost on a daily basis. It's quite overwhelming sometimes.
Well, you have to action it quickly, and there's some fundamental stuff happening. I can imagine the pace of the world has increased. Okay. So the topic for today is some of my best friends are actuaries.
Well, that's true for me.
And you are the nominee for the president-elect of the International Actuarial Association. And what are your thoughts? I mean, exciting times for you.
Yeah, sure. It is really quite daunting, but also really exciting opportunity to step into that role. Since my presidency of the Actuarial Society of South Africa, I was involved then in the IAA, and I've always really enjoyed it from the perspective of the engagement with the international actuarial community, and seeing that we're not so different. And that we can, the perspectives that we can have on certain problems when you're engaging at that level, and you see how they're being dealt with in different regions, it does give you a different lens to address some of our own challenges, and somewhat reassuring as well that we can contribute at that level. We sometimes view ourselves here in South Africa as being the backwater. But when I'm engaging at that level, I see that our profession here in South Africa, leading the world in many ways, and contributing really positively. I mean, there's quite a few South Africans involved in the various structures in the IAA. So the opportunity to step into a leadership role, really, as you say, very, very exciting. And so it's going to be quite a big commitment, but I am looking forward to it.
Very nice. Yes, I also find that when we deal with overseas clients or actuaries, over the years, 20 years, if not longer, the Actuarial Society of South Africa has really kept standards very, very high locally, and and I think just the South African, what we call the fierce, really comes through. And we were a wonderful people, hardworking, and I believe smart. And I think it comes through. And I think that 20 years of that, everyone else seems to agree. So it makes us, picking up clients a bit easier. Okay. So the first question is, what is it about actuaries that make them want to become actuaries?
Yeah, I guess I always, when I'm asked that question, by say matriculants who are thinking about studying actuarial science, I often ask them, do you enjoy problem solving? So maybe it's that curiosity and tenacity around approaching problems that are, that have fairly complex problems, and having the tenacity to find the solution. So it's not just an aptitude for maths, but it's a and excitement, the curiosity around exploring scenarios and coming up with the optimal solution to those problems. So I would say that maybe that's what it is. It's that tenacity around problem solving, but obviously there's also that the aptitude for the technical aspect of the work. And maybe there's also like a principle part of it, because the desire to be part of a profession and what it means to be part of a profession also. So it's a fairly unique combination of all of those things.
We have a visitor, so she'll just join us a little bit. Why not? She can't hear, but okay, she'll sit with me. Very, very nice. I agree with you. I think problem solving is the key. Actuaries can do a lot of different things. I think what is important, they could have gone and become engineers, doctors, very smart people.
Yeah.
It's really about the problem solving enjoyment that makes them want to become actuaries. Okay. So you've worked both as a consultant as well as now currently at a large corporation. And what have been some of your highlights in both environments? Because, as an up-and-coming actuary, somebody that wants to go, I want to be a consultant, I want to work in a big company. What have been some of your highlights? Please share with us. I'm sure both are just as wonderful depending on who you ask.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I was working as an independent actuary for just over 20 years. Sort of almost working for myself, which was great, especially because over that time I was raising my girls as well, and that flexibility that I had was very valuable to me. I'm sure, as you know, Adi, it's not about doing less work; it's just the time that you do it. So, but it meant that I had that flexibility in terms of when I was working to accommodate being able to do all the other things I wanted to do as well. So I enjoyed also that problem solving part of it. So in the consulting space, I saw a range of issues. I was working in prominently in healthcare, but also in retirement funding. And then every now and then I would get a left field kind of a project. My late partner, Tony Patz, that I worked with for years, he always used to say that the best kind of project was when the client is describing the problem to you, you have absolutely no idea how you're going to solve it. Because that's the kind of exciting projects to be involved in, but you're pretty sure that there is a way through it. So I must say I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the variety, the flexibility, and sort of that self-determination of it. And then when this opportunity to join Discovery came along, it certainly wasn't something that I sought, but when it was presented to me, I realized it was maybe time for a change, and that this was the kind of thing that I'd like to do. I'm quite fortunate in that my role is quite strategic. It's not so operational, and I think I did have some reservations about going into the corporate space, but obviously where I was coming into the corporate space meant that I didn't really have to worry about sort of those kind of, I guess, operational pressures, which can be sort of the negative side. So coming into the corporate space, I really so enjoy the sort of intellectual engagement and being part of that a team, where people are very committed and pushing hard in a positive way. So I've really enjoyed that, and I guess working for many years. I mean, not so much on my own, because I did collaborate with others, and I had a small team of people working with me. But it is quite different in this environment. So I certainly feel more, should I say, intellectually challenged, and I also really enjoy all the little things being taken care of. When you're working for yourself and the internet doesn't work, you're the one under the desk trying to find out which cable, and now there's there's someone to help make those things work. So that helps as well. And
there's lunch
and
available, and there's coffees,
yeah,
and the whiteboard is ready in the boardroom, and
absolutely.
there's probably just something about, if you've never done it, is sitting, being in a boardroom. It's got a nice view, nice vibe. Bring in some biscuits, everyone chats. It's very professional. It's very structured. You use the whiteboard, you leave it there. You don't have to carry it out. But just you go from one clean environment to the next, back to your desk, and then there's another meeting, and now it all starts again. Now there's a presentation. Just something about a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But I guess, in the corporate space, you also have to take a little bit of ownership of making that environment the way it works for you. So you don't want to be a victim of your environment. You more want to be a master of your environment. So, trying to manage the sort of the noise issues, like the extent to which you get caught up in just going from meeting to meeting. So being clear about what meeting objectives are, and whether who is essential in a meeting, so that you don't become sort of just this victim of circumstance. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. So very nice. That was always my dream, actually, to be honest, was to be in a big corporate. Oh, Deutsche Bank, Orange, Discovery, Investec, just, walking the corridors, saying hi to the receptionist, just, please, 10 o'clock coffee. I never got that, to be honest. I was forced to be an entrepreneur over the years, and I made the best of it. What can I say? Now entrepreneurship seems to be the flavor, but the path was,
it's a different kind of reward. I think it is a different kind of reward as well, in terms of that sort of the reward of self-determination. It's very much, you feel the benefit of what you're doing more immediately. I guess in the corporate space, you can sometimes feel like perhaps you're just a small part of a big structure, and to feel the difference of what you do. So I guess, that perhaps is one of the other things I really did enjoy around consulting.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, exactly. The reward aspect. Put me in a room with 10 other people that have not built up their own business, and I don't think that their pleasure levels will be as high as mine, in my opinion, potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been involved in academia for actuaries as a professor, and what sorts of topics is the syllabus looking at that it wasn't looking at, say, 20 years ago?
Yeah, sure. It's the ongoing challenge with education discussions is, what are we going to add to the syllabus? But then, of course, as soon as you get into that, like, well, what are we going to take away? So, if you think of our just our range of subjects now, healthcare, for example, is an addition since I qualified, and of course now there's banking, which we as the South African profession have led the way in terms of adding banking as a fellowship subject. And even the field of enterprise risk management, so the broader risk management than just financial risk management has been a big addition. So I guess that's kind of what has been happening. I guess the big topic at the moment is data science, and the extent to which our syllabus should be incorporating data science in terms of the data science techniques. Obviously, as actuaries, these are important tools for us. It's important that we understand the possibilities and how to interpret those outputs. But how much of the technical work? So that kind of debate and deliberation around the detail of data science. So I would say that's probably a big area of debate. And we also have ongoing discussion around the normative skills. aspects. So a big component of our qualification process in South Africa is the normative skills component, which is about professionalism and the communication and conduct and sort of approach, as opposed to just the techniques. And so what is the appropriate weighting for normative skills in our qualification process? So yeah, there's a lot of material actually that that we include if you look at the whole range of subjects, and I suppose with choice you can get to include more because people make choices to which subjects they're going to take. But then what that does is it means that there's a different meaning to the actuarial qualification, because you can't take for granted, for example, that an actuary has a particular knowledge base if there's a lot of choice in the curriculum. So again, lots of balance to strike.
Yeah, I mean, you're creating a universe of actuaries. It's not, this is one actuary can do one thing. Life actuary is different from a pensions actuary. And, I think that's really about trying in a weird sort of way to educate the industry, the market, rather, that in fact, when you need an actuary, it's very particular. Actuaries can do a lot of different things across a lot of different sectors. And, okay, so we'll go into that now. In fact, it's one of the things that I asked. And so I haven't really introduced myself. So I'm Adi Kaimowitz, and I don't think I did in the beginning. We have a business called Virtual Actuary, and we're a consortium of actuaries. That's the easiest way to mention it. We are an organized collaborative of actuaries that work together. It's a new type of business model, and we're in the front lines in interacting with InsurTechs and FinTechs and HealthTechs and property techs and investment techs and so on. And so, big data is also, we've had to have actuaries that understand big data and work in the SQL, being able to decipher bad quality data and actually make sense of it. So I totally understand about what types of actuaries are needed on particular sorts of projects and so on. It's something we focus on a lot, going into the future, trying to build a big consulting business. So I guess one of my questions here is InsurTech, FinTech, HealthTech. Ultimately, it's all about supposed efficient operation. Because that's really what happens with these InsurTechs and these FinTechs. They come up and, we've got an app that can, take away all the hassle in opening an insurer or being an underwriter. It's really about efficiency. I also believe that the big corporates have their own plenty of InsurTech and FinTech and software that makes them more efficient as well. I mean, you're not dealing with a company that operates the same way as it did 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So they themselves are their own InsurTech. So the small InsurTechs don't quite understand that. But so I guess my point is that what do you think is the actuary's role in InsurTech and FinTech and HealthTech? And I actually asked some of our actuaries, and some of the answers were that they believe that actuaries bridge the gap between efficiency and actuarial theory. So what are your views? Some of the topics that brought up: international financial reporting standards. We can be the biggest InsurTech, FinTech in the world. If you don't know how that works, you're not going to know what's going on. Modeling, actual proper modeling, not an Excel spreadsheet. Dissecting and evaluating potential products. Not just, I think, actually properly dissecting it, in banking, FinTech, credit risk, and really any sorts of risk. You can't just open up a FinTech, this is what we're going to do, and then say, when it comes to the actuaries, okay, we'll get an actuary business in. Well, actually, you should make some of your best friends actuaries. So what are your views on these new tech companies and how actuaries can fit in?
Yeah, well, I guess the core of it, which is the core of those businesses as well, of those points you were making, is understanding the risk. That's the really important value that actuaries bring in a range of spaces. Understanding what that change in the way in which perhaps you're doing something that was a traditional business model, but what does the change in the business model what does it mean in terms of the risk? And then more than just understanding the risk, but also how do you mitigate that risk? What is the way in which you can manage the risk? And we have to be careful, with, I guess one of the points I was going to say about the data you were mentioning earlier, we have the capacity in a lot of these tech environments to collect large amounts of unstructured data. But big data isn't necessarily useful data. So understanding, what data is valuable and what data you should be focusing on and how to make sure that the integrity of that data is preserved, because that's a risk in itself. But once you have the data, analyzing it and assessing it, and being mindful of the fact that we have to be kind of clear about where the risk lies as well. There's almost this drive towards having the models and using machine learning tools to come up with techniques of measuring risk such that you actually end up not transferring risk at all. If I'm going to be rated on 20, 30, 40, 50 risk factors in determining my insurance premium, for example, how much value am I actually getting from pooling my risk? So that then undermines actually the whole value proposition of insurance at all. So understanding that risk and where we can pool it and how we manage it, I think that's really valuable when it comes to what the skill set that actuaries bring. It's interesting when we debated about the banking subject in the South African curriculum, and I actually engaged with some of the leadership of the banks in our market, and one of the comments, which was actually made by an accountant who was giving me this input, said that what he appreciates about actuaries working in the banking space is their understanding of both sides of the balance sheet. And the relative risk of both sides of the balance sheet. If you think about it in banking, you've got basically these liabilities in terms of short-dated liabilities in terms of your deposits, and you've got these long-term assets in terms of loans, and it's a massive mismatch. So that risk of understanding both sides of the balance sheet and the dynamics around that is really valuable in the banking space. So similarly, I think in the tech space, what we understand about risk and what we understand about enterprise risk is very valuable.
Absolutely. I think as a FinTech or an InsurTech or HealthTech business, we can only go so far without really having a proper team of actuaries in your corner, because then you won't be able to take on more risk and make more of the profits later. Ultimately, you're just kind of hedging your business and partnering with another business, like an reinsurer or whatever, and they'll take advantage of you because you don't know what's going on. Then they'll say, okay, Absolutely. This is the pricing. This is the price. We're taking the risk. Oh, they're taking the risk. They're the smart actuaries. We don't know what's going on. It all comes down to, if you actually want to do better, have your own team in your corner. Because the truth is they get it, and that's why you're partnering with them. So don't just offload that responsibility, rather bring it in-house. That's the way that I see it. And I guess this is our last question. It is a digital world. And I guess, did you ever get into a situation where you said to yourself, I once saw an actuary that also had the ability to do this and that? Because ultimately, what are we talking about? IT skills, app development, digital networking skills, machine learning. So was there an actuary, not a person, but that you just, in theory, said, well, this person can do that, nanotechnology, and an actuary. That's what. So what do you think the super actuary of the next 5 years could also be doing, besides for the statutory actuarial product risk type stuff, to upskill themselves in this new digital age?
Yeah, I think sure. There's lots to say about that. I mean, I agree in terms of upskilling. I mean, I think we must be, if you're building your career, never be complacent. Always be, that curiosity and tenacity that sort of drove you into this profession in the first place. That should drive you to continuously working on building your skill set. And and then, of course, also, I think the multidisciplinary part is the other thing I was going to that you triggered when you were talking there, because there's so much to know and so much to learn that actually I'm not sure that super actuary actually exists, but perhaps super actuarial teams. So making sure that you're able to work in that team and recognize the skills different people can bring into a team environment, because if you're doing, for example, a pricing exercise, you may want to be working with the people who are doing the data analysis, for example, and you don't necessarily want to be doing all of that and be hands-on yourself. I'm sure you've experienced it, that when sometimes when you do all the analysis, you're so exhausted that by the time you have your results, it's there's no time and no mental space to do the interpretation. So working in a team where you have a different strengths in terms of those interpretive skills, the technical and programming skills, the validation, and even other disciplines, the relevant in my space, clinical skills in the healthcare space, economic skills, all of those things. I mean, we want to understand them, but we don't necessarily need to do them all.
Very nice. As a little side note, one of our co-CEO actually, the reason, my 10 years of working first as a recruiter of actuaries and then opening an actuary business allowed me to choose a co-CEO that, in my opinion, was extremely dynamic. And he's proven to be so. Why? Because he's an amazing banking actuary. He's an amazing investments actuary. He's an amazing life actuary. He hasn't done short-term GI stuff, what they call P&C overseas, or healthcare, but, audit work, pretty much pensions, pretty much across. So what that means is that if you want to be that sort of different interpretation of super accurate, it means cross multi-dimensional, cross sector marketable, which means that a client comes to you, you have like an actuary that has a practicing certificate in life and GI. That's massive. If you're doing reporting type stuff, I mean, you're a unit in and of yourself. Just interesting to see. We should try not to get boxed doing like one thing for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Because the carpet could be pulled out from the rug from under your feet, and then what?
Yeah.
What can you do after that?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you often find that that actuaries are able to move across disciplines, because what we learn is a way of thinking and a way of approaching these challenges and the problem solving. And so once you study sort of how that environment works, and you understand, say, the regulatory structure and the product structures, you can then apply your problem solving to that new environment really seamlessly. We often have that discussion when we're talking to the students about their subject choices. And we point out across at WITS, across the actuaries teaching at WITS, I'm not sure that there's any of the actuaries that are actually practicing in the area that they did their fellowship subject. So, I mean, in my case, my fellowship was in life, and I ended up having a career in pensions and health and social security. So, it's not a constraint. It's more a springboard to build your future knowledge.
Some fantastic points. I wish we could talk for longer about shop. I love talking shop, and I just want to thank you, Roseanne, for taking the time to share some insight and vision, really. And I look forward to staying in touch. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Adi. Take care of yourself.
Take care. Bye.